The long-anticipated Robbert Eggers Nosferatu remake is finally here. It's topping many end-of-year lists and giving people plenty of hear-me-outs about Nosferatu topping them. But does it live up to the hype? Before I get into that, let's talk about the cast. Nosferatu stars Lilly Rose Depp as Ellen, a woman plagued by horrific nightmares that tie her to Nosferatu. Nicholas Hoult as her newlywed husband, who is a solicitor who travels to Nosferatu's castle to broker a property deal. Wilem Dafoe as a mad doctor who knows exposition about Nosferatu, and Aaron Taylor Johnson as Nicholas Hoult's rich friend that takes care of Ellen in Nicholas's absence at the castle. I feel like this is something I say in every horror movie review, but I feel it's an important disclaimer to get out of the way. This movie is not scary at all. If you go in this expecting to be scared, you will be disappointed. There are a few random jump scare inserts that feel like they were shot just to put in the trailer, and they're pretty distracting and take away from the general atmosphere of the movie, and there are some creepy visuals, but I would not call the movie scary. The only thing that scared me about the movie is the conclusion it draws from its own metaphors, but I will get to that in the spoiler section. While it probably won't scare you, it will wow you with its visuals. Nosferatu is a very beautiful film in nearly every visual aspect. The practical effects look great, and while I did not like the design of Nosferatu and thought that his mustache looked dumb, I do appreciate making an actual creature instead of having a terrible CGI monster. This goes for the sets and locations as well. They shot on location in the Czech Republic and actual cities, cemeteries, and on a beach. They also had a backlot full of actual physical sets and even built some sets on location, like building a mausoleum inside of a cemetery. The film uses subtle CGI to enhance its visuals rather than entirely relying on them like most modern films. Like they always say, the best CGI is unnoticeable CGI. There is a noticeable difference in films that use CGI sets that permeates a film even if the CGI is good. While being able to react to things that aren't actually there is an essential skill for any major Hollywood actor now, I still do think it has an impact on the actor's performance even if they are doing a good job. I think that something is lost when you're entirely reacting to a green ping pong ball. Nosferatu being shot in an actual city also gives the environments a lot of visual depth that a lot of modern films lack. It doesn't seem like there's an invisible wall somewhere where the city randomly ends. Even the animals like the rats and wolves are real. I hope the success of this movie makes studios realize they can use practical effects instead of shooting everything in front of a green screen, or in the case of Disney, a TV screen, but I doubt it. The costumes are also great. They do a very good job of transporting you back to the 1800s where this movie takes place, and look very authentic. Well, at least to my untrained eye, I don't know what the fuck people wore in 1800s Germany. One costume and decision that did bother me is Lilly Rose Depp's haircut. That shit is fucked, and I hate it. I found it distracting in every scene she was in and hated seeing every possible inch of her forehead without her being partially bald. It's even parted in the sides a little bit so you can see even more of her forehead. I'm assuming this is a historical accurate haircut or whatever. I literally don't care. Give her a different historically accurate haircut that isn't ugly as hell. The lighting in the film is amazing. The film used actual candles and torches to light scenes and it looks incredible. Using torches and candlelights and actual flames also leads to shadows which look great, which is also thematically appropriate because Nosferatu's shadow is described as having power throughout the film. So the film being full of shadows shows that Nosferatu's influence is sort of everywhere and slowly creeping in. I also really like the way the nighttime scenes look and how they are monochromatic. It looks great and gives the film a distinct visual style and makes the nighttime scenes look very different from the daytime scenes visually, which is also cool. I keep using the word realistic to describe things. That is more for a lack of a better word, if anything, because Nosferatu has plenty of surreal imagery and fantastical events. It's more just that the film has a realistic look and feel to it, rather than the contents of the film necessarily being realistic, quote unquote. The entire time Nicholas Hoult is at Nosferatu's castle, it's a very dreamlike quality, and is full of little things that don't make any sense in a good way, where there's just like lapses in logic and scenes sort of flow into the other. The movie is full of great performances. I thought the whole cast knocked it out of the park. Lilly Rose Depp is the star of the show. She does a fantastic job acting possessed, especially with her contortions and physical acting, flailing around and moaning a bunch. Nicholas Hoult also does an amazing job portraying someone who has been physically and emotionally traumatized, with his trauma increasing as the movie progresses. I've seen a few people online say that Aaron Taylor Johnson's performance is bad, which I do not understand at all. He's doing a good job. He's also playing a much more understated character than the rest of the cast, and I feel like that may affect people's perception. I also think people might find it distracting to see Aaron Taylor Johnson in a period piece. I can't blame people for. For example, I find Wilem Dafoe pretty distracting. He's giving a good and bombastic performance, but I can only see him as Wilem Dafoe playing a character versus the actual character. Something you will notice I have not praised yet is the story. That's because that's the weakest part of the film, and I didn't really care for it. Nosferatu is a remake of a movie that is an unauthorized bootleg adaptation of Bram Stoker's Dracula novel. If you're familiar with the novel of Dracula, or its many adaptations, for example, the film Bram Stoker's Dracula, a lot of the story beats will be familiar, and it'll almost seem watered down because there's a lot of the plot details that Dracula has is omitted. The first half of the movie felt particularly like we were just going through the motions and the typical story beats of every Dracula story. While the visuals of Nicholas Hoult and Nosferatu's castle are superb, it just reminds you of other adaptations or the original novel. Like, how many times do we need to see Dracula / Nosferatu troll a confused man in his castle by doing a bunch of weird shit, and then after see Dracula / Nosferatu on a boat coming to England? It's just retreading old ground, and I wish that they changed more with the story and the plot details than it being a typical Dracula adaptation. I would recommend Nosferatu on a conditional basis. A lot of people, probably the majority of people, like movies where the plot is put first and the visuals second, which is perfectly fine. That is how movies typically work, and there's no problem with that. But if you are someone who prefers a movie with a very strong plot and traditional character arcs and all that stuff that's in a traditional movie, I don't think you'll get much from it. On the other hand, if you're someone who appreciates more visual films and doesn't mind films that are more about interesting visuals and vibes than plot, then I think you'll like this movie a lot because it is a visual feast. This is the end of the review portion. I'm going to talk about some spoilers, so if you're heading out now, thanks for watching. Okay, spoiler time. I don't understand the metaphor of this movie, or at least I hope I don't, because the way I see it, the movie is saying something incredibly disgusting. Being fed on Nosferatu, either physically or psychically, is extremely sexual and a clear metaphor for rape. Like, it's so blunt to the point where I'm not even sure if you can call it a metaphor. When Lilly Rose Depp is being psychically attacked by Nosferatu, she's writhing and moaning. It's all very sexual. When Nicholas Hoult is being fed on, Nosferatu is humping him, and there's flashes of a sexy Lilly Rose Depp before it becomes just a Nosferatu. Lilly Rose Depp even talks about being violated by Nosferatu as a child. So there's an incredibly unsubtle rape metaphor here, which is perfectly fine. Horror movies are often full of metaphors for darker issues like that. What I take issue with is the ending wherein to defeat Nosferatu, Lilly Rose Depp has consensual sex with him. The way the end of the movie is framed and the way she gives in to her sexual abuser at the end makes it seem like the moral of the story is that people are attracted to the people who sexually abuse them. At least that's what it seems like to me, which is disgusting. And even behind the scenes, the cast and people around the film has been framing it as some sort of love triangle, when, like I said, Lilly Rose Depp's character says how she was violated by Nosferatu as a child, and it could not be anything else but rape. The reaction to this movie is very strange to me. I see a lot of people being like, this is what it's like to have a crush as a girl, and stuff like that, where they sort of frame it as a forbidden love angle, and not someone who was raped by someone as a kid. Once again, I hope I'm reading this wrong and, I'm crazy and that this was not intentional somehow, but I really don't see how you could interpret it any other way. It's like the most blatant rape I've ever seen in a fucking movie, aside from an actual rape scene. Also, the movie frames Lily as unable to be saved and forever corrupted because of the sexual abuse from Nosferatu, which is pretty gross. And once again, if that's the message that's intended, this movie is disgusting. Anyway, that's Nosferatu. Did you see it? What's your favorite vampire movie? Just let me know in the comments. Thanks for watching. Bye bye.